Indie Beacon Radio with hostess Charlotte Canion. Welcome to Indie Beacon Radio, where creative souls can find help in marketing their creations. You can send questions for each show on Twitter using the hashtag IndieBeacon. Now sit back and enjoy learning about our guest for this show.
I'm your host, award-winning author Charlotte Canion. Our guest this evening is Marion Behr. She's going to share how art tells the story of cancer. Her book is Surviving Cancer, Our Voices and Our Choices. Marion, welcome to the show.
Charlotte, thank you so much. I'm just delighted to be here, and I'm delighted to see you face to face.
I know we've had so many different little conversations. My first question is, I know that our listeners would love to know a little bit of your background and your family. So, just tell us who you are and, just a little bit so we get intrigued about hearing your story.
Well, my parents came from Germany. They fled from Germany, and my father was a film producer there. And
wow.
So I think the creative streak has been passed down from generation to generation. And actually, one of his movies was selected to be at MoMA for the Weimar Film Festival.
Uh-huh.
My kids met my dad for the first time at that film festival showing because he died when I was 7. So through the movie, they met him. And my husband, who's actually sitting in the room with me, is a patent attorney, and he's been super supportive of all the work I've done. So it's been an interesting life, and we have 3 children and 5 grandchildren, and lots of them are creative.
And they're all creative, right?
They're creative in different ways. My oldest daughter is a doctor. My son is a lawyer, and my youngest daughter is proficient in English as a second language. So there is a wide variety. Actually, the kids were very, very prevalent where this book is concerned and where the sculptures are concerned, because we were in Japan and they had heard about needing to get mammograms. So they called up while we were there. They said, "Mom, have you had your mammogram?" And I said, "Come on, I get it every year." And they questioned whether really every year. And I promised when I got back that I'd get it. And I hadn't been there in 2.5 years. And that was the beginning of the story.
That was the beginning of your journey. When did the art come into the story?
Well, at 7, I won my first big art award, and that was actually illustrating a book. It was called Dimples and Cocksure, and it was a national competition. And I did drawings and won that competition. And from that point on, my future was going to be in art in one way or another.
Oh, that is super. Well, when did you said you illustrated a book. When did you start writing?
I've done a number of books, and they're actually here.
Neat.
Women Working Home, the Home-Based Business Guidance Directory. One edition was done in 1978 and the next in 1983. And again, this is a compilation. It was published by our company. We sold 50,000 books of both combined. And that was because the home-based business issue wasn't home-based at the time. It was called cottage industry. And women had a lot of problems because they felt like secondhand citizens. And I did the first major survey through a magazine and found out their interests, and as a result of their interests, compiled the books. And we actually formed an organization at the same time called the National Alliance of Home-Based Business. And we got a lot of rules changed in favor of home workers. So it was a very interesting time. And actually, I coined the phrase home-based business as opposed to cottage industry because of all this work.
I like home-based industry. That kind of speaks, I guess, louder to the entrepreneurial women,
Well,
who do things.
Today, I mean, it's a major thing because of the virus, right?
Because of COVID, yeah. Everybody's home-based pretty much.
Right. And at the time, it was something very different because home-based was cottage industry. It was something not respected in the same way. And of course, that's changed a great deal. So
Yeah.
that book was compiled, and the second edition was compiled, and we had amazing experiences because all of the major magazines wrote about the book because it was new in theory, and I did Donahue and Good Morning America and AM America, and I had a younger voice at the time, so it was easy and fun to do. And we were very, very, very fortunate. And Changing Times did articles, and Family Circle did an article with a coupon. So that was the beginning of really being very highly publicized. And there were 3 of us involved in the company, and we worked like crazy.
Oh my goodness. I recognized your name because, I think you and I are in the same genre. I mean, I'm over 70, so, I've been there with the baby boomers, right?
Right. You don't look at that for sure.
Yeah. Before we go to break, can you tell us what your art is made out of?
Sure. And I'll tell you how it happened. I was lying on a table about to have my radiation. I was in something called a radiation cradle, which keeps you from moving around. And clearly I wasn't exactly relaxed. So I started looking around the room to divert myself. And on the right wall, there were tons and tons of shelves. And the shelves were filled with radiation cradles. And at first I thought, what was each person thinking when they were lying where I'm lying? And then I thought, wow, those radiation cradles would make great sculpture. So shortly thereafter, I asked the nurses if I could take them home. And they said, of course, because they couldn't recycle them. Ultimately, I had 24 sculptures in the first show, and 30-some sculptures in the second show. And the sculptures were there to encourage women to have early detection. And there were amazing experiences as a result of that.
Well, I think that's just amazing. Now, if you're just intrigued, you need to stay tuned. Our sponsors are going to take a little break, but we're going to come back and dig deeper into Marion Behr's story. I think it's just fabulous.
Thank you, Charlotte.
Do you send book sales to a company that takes most of your money? Want to earn more money from your book sales? Do you want a bookstore that supports you? Introducing a new bookstore for indie authors and small press, B4R.store. Earn up to 80% of your book sales and learn how to market yourself. B4R.store. Join us for the 6th Annual Authors Marketing Event in Granbury, Texas on July 23rd to the 25th, 2021, where authors share ideas and learn from the professionals over a 2-day weekend. Receive your book marketing certification from the only organization in the world that has been doing it for 5 years, Authors Marketing Guild, a membership-based organization that supports authors from around the world. Learn more at ame.authorsmarketingguild.com. Sponsored by indielector.store, a bookstore that pays authors their fair share.
Hello, I am the author and poet Denise Bryson. I am the author of The Things That Cross My Mind, Loves Reality, both in book and audio form. I am also noted as one of the best poets of 2011. I have 2 new projects coming up. One is the Blinky series, where Blinky tells us all about our coins and our bills for our children. I also have a book coming out called Say Ye. It's quotes from Denise Bryson, just inspirational and that will help you along the way.
Welcome back to Indie Beacon Radio. Don't forget to like us, follow us, or subscribe to one of our many channels. Now, here is your host for today's show.
Back. We are speaking with Marion Behr, and she has a fascinating story about having cancer and then making art that expressed how cancer made her feel. She has a book that's called Saving Cancer. I don't know if you can see mine, but it's Surviving Cancer, Our Voices and Our Choices. Marion, one of the things I wanted to ask you, on page 55 in your book, and I realize you have some other people's stories that have, that are collections within your book of their journey through with cancer. And by the way, I've had cancer myself. My first husband died of cancer. My second husband has had cancer. I mean, I think it's all around us. But you said in that chapter that family history is really important. Can you express to our listeners why family history is so important?
Sure. That article was written by a doctor, and the book has doctors and oncologists and healthcare professionals and organization leaders. And then the survivors come in and out. So it's a real cancer journey. It's the same thing that you and I experienced with going to a primary doctor and then perhaps a gynecologist and then a radiation doctor, a radiology doctor, and then going for the surgery and then going to the medical oncologist. So step by step by step. And the family history, that was written by a doctor whose, let's say, specialty is in the history of BRCA1 and BRCA2 mutations. And so she did a great chart, and she stressed how important it is, if you have the mutations, to talk to people in your family and talk to the doctors and see that the history is recorded, so it makes it easier for the other people in your family.
Right. Mine skipped a generation because my mother and father didn't have, but my grandmother, my mother's mother, she died of cancer at a very, you and I'll agree with this, at a very young age of 62.
I did a panel discussion in our second show, and the reason we did the panel presentation was the curator had decided that so many people who came to the show either had cancer or members in their family had cancer, and she wanted to do a presentation for the community. So 5 of us spoke, and the first person was a medical oncologist, and then there were 4 survivors. And when you talk about young, the youngest person was 27, the next young woman was 31, the next person was in her 40s, and I had just turned 70. So, I looked at these young women, and they were beautiful, Charlotte, and they were intelligent, and they clearly had been super frightened by the cancer. And the first person to speak, who was 27, talked about having come from the West Coast to the East Coast because of a new job, no family, no friends, no significant other at the time when she was told she had cancer. And this young woman, I've spoken with her in other places, and she's just incredible. And to listen to her, she was so brave. She wrote about her experience. And she said when she had chemo, no hair, willing to keep 3 eyelashes in place. She got dressed up, she went to bars, she said all the men stared at her, and she thought it was because she was sexy and attractive. And afterwards, her attitude was, well, you know what? Maybe that's not what they thought. Maybe they just thought I had terrific courage. And that was the approach of, so many of the survivors. It was an amazing experience. And
I'm sure you interviewed a lot of different, physicians and oncologists and people that had traveled the journey. What was the and we know it crosses all genders. It doesn't discriminate race, creed, gender. Can you tell us what was one of the hardest let's just say gender that to get a story from?
When we finished with the book, or I thought I was finished, and I was thrilled because it had taken close to 5 years to get everything. And as I said, my oldest daughter was a doctor, so I brought a copy of the book of the manuscript to her, and I said, okay, Mom, I'm finished, please read. And she said, sure, Mom, and she went through it, and her first sentence was, I think it's terrific. And then she said, but, and I thought, uh-oh, here it comes. And her but was, it doesn't have anything about male breast cancer. So she proceeded to write about the male breast cancer while I went out hunting for that male. And the reason she thought it was so important was because men don't talk about having male breast cancer. And they don't get to the doctors at the time. And so their stages by the time they get to the doctors are much higher than they would have needed to be. So I called doctors and they said, yes, we do have a male breast cancer patient or 2 or 3, but they don't want to write about what's happening. And I got it because there was a time when women didn't want to talk about breast cancer. So what finally happened, I called friends, and the mother of Michael Carr, who wrote beautiful poems in the book, one to his mother and one to his father, thanking them for what they did when he was ill. His mom was very involved with cancer and cancer races and things like that, raising money. And she called me and she said, Marion, I have a male breast cancer patient who wants to tell his story. And he came to our house and we recorded the whole story of his experience. And Charlotte, it was amazing because it was the feelings that we have too, but he had never felt the cancer. He had never felt a lump. His wife was putting oil on his chest when they were outside at the beach. She felt the lump. And when he first went to look about male breast cancer on the internet, he couldn't find anything. It was women, women, women. And then he discovered some things about male breast cancer. And then ultimately he had the mastectomy, and ultimately he went for the BRCA testing and other testing too, because he had 2 daughters. and he wanted to be sure that they would be all right. But the most interesting thing was he said, I'm here because I don't want other men to go late. They should self-exam at least once a month and not always just wash with a bar of soap the way I do.
Yeah.
And washing with a bar of soap, you don't feel alone.
Yeah. And sometimes if they're so small. Marion, we're going to have to take another break here, so I'm going to get you to hold that. We want to come back, and I want you to share with us how people can get your book, and I want you to think about what advice, if in 2 or 3 sentences, you would like to give. But y'all have to stay tuned to get that spark of wisdom from Marion Behr.
Authors Marketing Guild is a membership-owned organization designed to help authors succeed and learn how to better market and sell themselves and their books. Join us at authorsmarketingguild.com and receive so many benefits you'll wonder why you didn't join sooner. That's authorsmarketingguild.com.
Welcome back to Indie Beacon Radio. Don't forget to like us, follow us, or subscribe to one of our many channels. Now, here is your host for today's show.
Welcome back. This is Charlotte Canion, and we are interviewing Marion Behr. Now, she is a cancer survivor and has written a book called Surviving Cancer, Our Voices and Our Choices. Marion, I had mentioned before our break that I wanted you to come up with 2 or 3 sentences that of advice and of what you learned through this journey of interviewing. It looks like, many, I'm going to say 20 or 30 people. How many? 70 people to put together your book. I want you to put it in 2 or 3 sentences and tell the people how important it is, or what your advice from talking to all of these people would be.
One of the things that was very important, both doctors and survivors, was to have someone come along when you go to the doctor's offices. And one of the doctors actually had said that she never, ever tells a patient that they have cancer on the phone. She asked, right. She asked the person to bring someone along because driving home becomes difficult. Hearing what the doctor has to say becomes difficult. And the person who hears this is so frightened that clearly they need emotional support. And I have to tell you, there are other reasons. My husband came with me. I'm super allergic to latex. And somebody who was going to take a blood test had latex gloves on. And he said to the person, what material are your gloves made out of? And they said, latex. And, clearly I wouldn't have noticed because I was anxious. I wouldn't have questioned it, and I would have gotten really sick. And other advice, Dr. Richard Margolis was a doctor who won the Order of Canada. And when I heard about him, we were in Cambodia, and the woman who suggested him, her mom had cancer, and she said to me, I'm all right for you, and I think that Dr. Margolis might too. And I thought, he'll never write for us because we're virtually unknown in this area. And she said, no, he got the Order of Canada, but he's very, very interested in protecting people that have cancer. And he may well like for you to contact him. So I did. And
Yeah.
he's a clinical trial expert.
Oh, that's super. You know, I can relate to what you were just saying, that you have to have someone with you, because when I had bladder cancer and my urologist had sent me to this other doctor, and I'm going to say he probably had the worst bedside manner in the world, and there was no one in the room with me, and he told me I had cancer. I want you to know, I walked out of there in shock. I was scared because my first husband had died of cancer.
Right.
I'm walking down this hallway, and I literally had to sit on the floor and just cry by myself and try to reach my husband. So that in itself is so important. If you're going somewhere to, to have something tested, take someone with you. Take a girlfriend, take your parent, take your boyfriend, take your spouse.
Right.
Take your children, anybody with you that can hold your hand and help you, walk through that. Now, Marion, we're getting to the end of the show, and I want everyone to be able to get your book. So could you please tell them where they can get your book, and also share your website with us?
Sure. Should I hold this up for you? And you can say it as that where you want me. I think Alan had said say it. So it's Amazon.com and then a slash and then 061-585-6004. And also, when you go there, read the reviews, because we've been super fortunate with reviews. The Library Journal gave us a great review in Cancer Care and Cure Magazine, and we've really been very lucky. And I want to say one thing that's so important. I want to thank you, but I also want to thank all of the people who contributed to the book. And because we self-published, there were so many people besides the printer and the editor and the person who did the designing and the photographer, and it goes on and on.
And it goes on and on. Well, Marion, it has been a pleasure to interview you. I want to thank you again. Your smile is beautiful, and like I say, it's great to see your face finally, on the, even though it's on the screen and we're miles and miles away. Well, this is Charlotte Canion, your host, and I want you to remember, a rose is like a book. You can't know its beauty until you look at it. And a book is like a rose. You won't know its full beauty until you open it. So until next time, stay safe and have a nice day. Bye.
Thank you for listening to Indie Beacon Radio, where creative souls can find help in marketing their creations. To learn more about Indie Beacon services, to be a guest on the show, or to advertise on our show, please visit our website.
Indie Beacon Radio with hostess Charlotte Canion. Indie Beacon Radio is produced by B. Allen Bourgeois for Authors Marketing Guild LLC, copyright 2020. Voiceover by Randy James, Lydia Bello, and B. Allen Bourgeois. To be a sponsor of the show or for more information, please email us at info@authorsmarketingguild.com. To be interviewed for the show, please complete the form at radio.authorsmarketingguild.com. Music Always Rejoice by Ramcord